What's good, everybody? How you doing? How's everybody doing? Hopefully, we're all doing good. Again, hopefully we're all staying safe and doing what we need to do to keep ourselves and our family members safe during this COVID season. It's been a minute, been probably a couple of weeks since I've been on. I was supposed to be doing this every Thursday at 7:30, um, and not no sooner than I made that announcement or that I put that out there, my work schedule changed. So um, I go I switch shifts. So I'm back and forth, AM and PM. And depending on, really depending on the job needs, I might end up on one shift for a longer time than usual or than normal. So right now I'm kind of in between that. So I'm coming on now. I think what I'm going to do for the future, since I can't do just one time period every week, or I should say, since it can't be consistent, especially with my shifting shifts, my switching shifts, I think I'm going to aim towards more of a Saturday because no matter what my shifts are, my Saturdays and my Sundays are free. Actually, let me take that back. Now I think about it. Sunday at 7:30 is probably my best bet to do a live because again my I don't work on the weekend, so that's probably the best time for me to do it. So hopefully I'll have some people join me again to answer any kind of questions that you might have about the military, about the Army Reserves, about the Army National Guard. Um, thoughts on anything. Again, concerning those two things. I'm more than willing to answer those type of questions. So, without further ado, I just want to kind of get into the topic for today. So, starting off, I think with the last stream, I said I was probably going to talk about the COVID-19 vaccination and just give my opinions on it. Motion detected at the home. Just give my opinion on it. So let's start with there. Obviously, we've been in this COVID environment for really, I guess, about a year now. March of last year is when everything kind of popped off. Like we saw back in January of 2020, we saw outbreaks in, I think it was Washington State was the first, and then we later saw them in California. But I think things really got real across the country in March when you started seeing uh, infections pop up really all across the country. I mean, at the time, obviously, we didn't really know much about it. Health experts, doctors didn't know much about it. So there were a number of measures that were put into place across the country in order to kind of slow the curve. Um, there were, I think initially there was a countrywide mandate, and then eventually that kind of got backtracked to not backtracked, but that kind of gave way to states, kind of administering their own COVID-19 uh, combatants, right? So restrictions. There we go. Their own COVID-19 restrictions. And so, like I said, it's been a year. I don't know that anybody in the initial part really saw us being in this type of environment for so long. But as 2020 went on, towards the end of 2020, we got vaccinations started to get, or I should say, breakthroughs started happening in vaccinations, and then they started gaining approval. And here we are now, March 2021, where we have vaccinations that are available for American citizens, mainly through Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson, if I'm not mistaken. I think I saw today where the test results came back from the AstraZeneca vaccination. I think they're like at 78 or 79% efficacy, but they haven't gone through FDA approval yet. So I don't think that's an option right now. So with that being said, just like with everything, in recent history, there's this big divide on the vaccination and whether or not we should take it. Or there are people who have the mindset of not taking it. Some people are swearing by it. Other people are swearing it off. And so, you kind of have this interesting dynamic. We were talking about this at work where, you have in one camp people who are saying like, hey, let's get the vaccination so that way we can get life back to normal. Then there are others who are saying like, no, it's not that big a deal. I'm not gonna get the vaccination. I've had the flu. I haven't gotten the flu shot. I'm not gonna get this shot. We'll be fine. We'll build up a natural resistance to it. So for me personally, at this moment, I fall in the camp of get the vaccination. Right, we're like me and my family. My wife has already gotten her first dose. Whenever it's available for me to get my vaccination, I'm going to get it. And then when it becomes available for our daughter, then she'll get it as well. And I'll tell you why. So last year, when it was going through the pretty much like just the rush process of approval, I was like, nope, not feeling it at all, because the process to me was just way too rushed. And I just wasn't very trusting of that process. I wanted to see more trials. I would have liked to have seen more information being put out, and understanding. Again, this is a pandemic, so they're trying to work as fast as they possibly can, so that way they're able to get this vaccination out. Because the fear, which is something that's come true, is that there may be variants, and we've seen that in I think South Africa and Brazil, in the UK, now in New York and California. There are variants that are a little more potent. Well, some of them are more potent, some of them are not. But some of the variants are a little more potent than the original coronavirus. The vaccines, they say, they're able to hold up against the different variants anyway. But no, like I said, when I saw them really, kind of rushing the process, it didn't make me feel good about wanting to be one of the first ones to get the vaccination. I kind of wanted to. I kind of had a wait and see approach. Like let's see other people get it first, see if they turn into zombies or grow wings or something like that, and then if not, then I'll be good with it. And so now in March, and also I also say this too. Last year, to be honest with you, there just wasn't very much. The messaging was off. Let's just put it plainly. Let me just put it plainly. The messaging was off last year. When it came to what Dr. Fauci and the CDC was saying, what the president, the past president, President Trump, was saying, they were just not on the same page. There was a lot of there's just a whole lot of mixed messaging last year when it came to the coronavirus, when it came to the vaccination. That I just really wasn't. I just wasn't buying into it. I didn't feel like I wanted to take it because of that. Now in March 2021, to me, the environment is a little bit different. There's been more forums for Dr. Fauci, other doctors, the CDC to really walk through what this vaccination is and how the vaccination works. So last year, a lot of people, including myself, were thinking that the shot was going to be them taking part of the flu and injecting it into you, so that way your body can become immune to it. Like I said, with more research, with more interviews, with more questions being answered, understand that they're not taking the virus, but they're kind of taking a protein or like the architecture of the virus and introducing that into your body. So that way your body's able to notice it and then start building its defenses against it. We have multiple vaccinations that are available now: Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, those kinds of things. So, with more information being put out, with me being able to hear the different questions that have been asked and the answers to those questions, I feel better about the vaccination. Also, here's the thing for us. So my daughter has upper respiratory issues. And so for her, getting the coronavirus for her, it's not guaranteed that she would have a rough time, but her upper respiratory issues would not make it easy for her, or could potentially not make it easy for her. If I was just by myself, if I was single, I probably would have a different mindset. But having a family, and I'm just like, now having a family, I don't want to put her into that type of risk. Hey, what's going on, Eric? It's good to see you. I actually saw one of your videos. you're looking to go into the Guard. You want to serve in education benefits. How did you bring this conversation up with your wife, and how was the time apart while you trained? That's a good question. Good question. So I'll take it. I'm stay on, Eric. Don't go anywhere because I'm going to address your question. Let me just finish this one last point, and I'm coming right to you. So, for me, the vaccination really is, again, for me, the vaccination is more of um, it's a thing about safety for my family, wanting to keep my daughter safe, wanting to keep, my mother has a lot of physical ailments as well, so wanting to keep them safe. And so for me, no, I understand people having reservations about the vaccination. I understand that people don't trust government. I completely get that. But here's the thing, and this is where I fall into it. It's either we want to get back to a place in society where we can walk around without the mask and kind of get to something that's back to normal, or we don't. The reality is that the the way to kill the virus is just like killing any other virus, is that you got to kind of choke it out. Like, you have to cut off the avenues. And if we're defenseless, then yeah, you might catch it and you can be completely fine, right? Recover and everything. And you have your immunity for a few months or whatever. However, because that vaccination isn't meeting any resistance, then not the vaccination, but because that virus isn't meeting any resistance, then it can do what it's doing now, where it mutates and becomes a different type of variant, and who knows how that may affect people. So I'm hoping that more people take it than not, so that way we can kind of again choke this thing out in the country. And I hope that we get back to a place where everything doesn't become a political factor, where you're making decisions based on a political, I guess a political stance, right? Like, some things are just regular life, and we need to keep it that way. All right, Eric, let me get to you real quick, man. So this is a great question. So you're a teacher. I was a teacher also, by the way. So you're 31. You're looking to join the Guard. Your motives are that you want to serve and educate, and you want the education benefits. And you also, I'm assuming that you're married, since you asked how did I bring this conversation up to my wife. And also, how was the time apart from them, from my family while I was training? So let's go to the first thing. So the first thing, 31, you're still within the age range. So the age range for joining the Army, I'm pretty sure you know this already, is 34. 35. So you have to be able to enlist. You have to have your enlistment completed before your 35th birthday. So if you're going through the process and you're 34 and you're supposed to swear in, if you have not sworn in before you turn 35, then all that paperwork is for naught, right? So unless you get an age waiver. Now there are age waivers just in case. Again, you're 31, so you have plenty of time, but just in case something happens and you kind of get delayed or whatever, there are age waivers. And the Army is still in a spot where they're looking for people, so that's good. The Guard, you want to serve in education. So okay, so here we go. So let's talk about let me first go to your question about how I brought this conversation up with my wife. So essentially, before I talked to my wife about it, I did a lot of research and I kind of laid out my argument. So I had to really be able to figure out how was this going to be beneficial to us as a family. And I had to really sell her on the time being away being worthwhile. So for me, like I said, I decided, I did research on the MOS that I was going to do. And I really looked for an MOS that was going to be beneficial in the civilian world. Because remember, as a Guard or a reservist, you go away for training, but then you got to come right back home. And so I tell, especially young guys who are joining the reserves or the Guard, if you're going to do that, make sure you're gunning for an MOS that you can come home and then make that your career. Right? You can turn that MOS into a civilian career, so that way it's beneficial. I have nothing against infantry guys at all. God bless them; they're great guys. But if you're going Guard or reserves, that skill doesn't really benefit you when you come home. So again, if you're going reserves or guard, then absolutely make sure you're getting the MOS that you want. So what I did, again, I probably didn't talk to her about it for about, I don't know, it's probably close to a month when after I started really seriously thinking about that being an option. Once I did my research, um, and figured out how, the financials of it, like you said, like you're looking for the benefits, education, things of that nature, VA loan, healthcare, all that kind of good stuff. Then I came and I spoke with her and I said, "Hey, listen, this is what I'm thinking. Um, I'm thinking I want to join the army, get this skill, and I'm going to take this skill and I'm going to parlay that into a civilian career. Here's what this civilian career is making, it's earning as far as salary is concerned. Um, Here are the benefits. The healthcare is cheaper than civilian healthcare. Not only are the education benefits good for me as a soldier, but they're also good for her. They're good for her as my spouse. Um, I talked about, with my daughter. I was like, hey, through the GI Bill, her education, when she gets to that point, her education will be paid for. And really, in the grand scheme of things, this is really. I was like, hey, in the grand scheme of things, we're going to be married forever, and I just have to go away for 10 weeks for basic training, and then for at the time my AIT that I was going to was going to be like 52 weeks or something like that. And then so essentially I was like, hey, I got to go away for training for like a year. We're going to be married forever. This is going to be an investment in the family. This is an investment in our future. And it kind of does check the box for me in two ways. It helps me take care of my family, but it also helps me to serve. Like I've always had a desire to do it, and this kind of gives me the opportunity to do that as well. I would say this: nothing that I told her was satisfactory to her at all. She did not want me to go. She was not looking. She no matter how much how much money I threw in her face, she was not interested in me leaving them. My daughter was probably 2 or 3 at the time. So my wife was not very enthusiastic about it at all. She kept, every week or so we would have conversations, and she would, try to convince me out of it, try to convince me away from doing it. Talk to me about having coming up with other ways to do what I wanted to do. But I told her, say, hey, no, this is a clear path. I know I can do this, and I know we can do this together and get through it. And once we get through it, we'll be fine. So she was not happy about it. And I would say she wasn't happy about it all the way up to the day I left. Right. Like as time got close to me leaving, she just kind of accepted it. But she was not happy about it. So it was kind of one of those things where I saw the vision and I just kind of had to go after it. But I went after it. I spoke with her so that way I can get her to understand. I didn't just run over her. I just kind of talked to her so she could understand where I was coming from and how it was going to benefit us. And then as she accepted it, not being happy, but as she accepted it, she became supportive of me, kind of going after and doing what I needed to do. Now, as far as how was the time apart, for me, that was the hardest part. So basic training is at the time was 10 weeks. And I think, for younger guys who are, where it's their first time leaving home, the toughest part about basic training is not being home, losing the freedom, and just not understanding how to handle the pressures that comes with basic training. For me, I was 34 when I first got to basic training. The hardest part for me was the family piece because I had my wife at home. I had my daughter who was 2 or 3 years old. And it was the first time specifically for my daughter that I had been away from her for any amount of time. For me, the challenge was emotional and mental when it came to them because I just missed them. And I kept wondering like what my daughter was thinking and what she might have been going through. And the biggest thing for me was I didn't want to create a situation where my daughter developed some kind of like complex or what have you because I wasn't around. And so it was tough. We were in basic training we would write you write letters. And some of the letters, like I remember my wife wrote me this one letter, and then the letter she talked about how my daughter would come down to the room and be like, "No, mommy, where is he? Where is daddy?" and that would, that would tug at my heart. Another time she wrote me and she was saying how, something happened, and my daughter started crying and kind of yelling out that, I want my daddy. Where's my daddy? And that tugged at my heart too. So I'm not going to I'm not going to lie and say it's easy. It's not. It's tough. That's the toughest part for me. But you got to keep the goal in mind. So whatever your goal is, like you said, you want to serve and you want the education benefits. Then you got to keep that goal in mind and press forward, and understand that your that your that your move here is going to be what's best for the family. So when you're talking to your spouse, you got to come from the stance of how this is going to benefit the family. And there has to be a level of buy-in from your spouse. Because otherwise, I've seen it the other way. I was actually in basic training with the guy who was there. His wife was not supportive, but he kind of went there. He went there kind of to, I think that was kind of his way of kind of working on the relationship. And in the end, it still didn't work out. So if you're going to make that move, you got to be able to make that move together, and you got to be able to, really have that real conversation with your spouse. And even if they're not 100% okay with it, as long as you guys are on the same page with how this could benefit, and they kind of turn from all out not accepting it to at least accepting it, then it can work out. And I think as long as you pick an MOS that's going to be beneficial, then you'll be fine. I was a teacher for 11 years. I was a middle school teacher for 11 years. I just didn't see a path forward for me that I wanted to pursue in education. So I used the Guard, because I enlisted in the Guard. I used the Guard to kind of get a different career, or one that was a little bit more that made a little more money, and that I can kind of see myself moving forward in. Also, keep this in mind, Eric. With the Guard, my experience with the Guard, and I think other people's experience with the Guard too, is great. However, your promotions are slow. So I enlisted in 2016, and I was in the Guard up until 2020. And from 16, well, I guess technically from 2018 to 2020, because that's when I reported to the unit, I stayed at E4 the whole time. I switched over to the Army Reserves last March, and I've already been sent to BOC, and I'm just waiting. I'm just awaiting my promotion. But everything that I need to do has already been done. My last unit wasn't able to send me to BOC. So keep that in mind as well. If you're going to go Guard, depending on the unit you go to, or depending on your MOS too, your promotions could be slow. The Army Reserves just has a lot more resources, because the Army Reserves is federally funded, whereas the Guard's funding comes from the state. So everything really depends on the state. Your promotion depends on what spots are available in the states, and all that kind of good stuff. So I wish you all the luck in the world. Hopefully you and your spouse are able to be on the same page, and like I said, you're able to move forward, and they're able to support you. What grade do you teach, by the way, if you don't mind me asking that? And while I'm waiting on you to answer that, also keep this in mind as well. 8-year veteran as a teacher. Thanks. Okay, awesome. 8 years. Spanish teacher, high school. Okay, awesome. That's good stuff. Good stuff. Well, high school and middle school, those are extremely important years. So kudos to you. 8 years. That means you've probably taught over. Let's see. You've probably taught, because I think when I was teaching, I had at least 100 kids I taught every year. So that means you've probably taught close to 800 kids at least. I know sometimes the specials get a little more students. So kudos to you. And again, good luck to whatever you decide to do as it pertains to the Army. So yeah. So no, for those that don't know, I was a teacher for 11 years, and the whole reason why I actually joined the Army was because I just didn't see a path forward for myself. Yeah, middle school for sure. I didn't see a path forward for myself. I didn't want to become a principal. That just wasn't really. I looked at what principals do, and I'm like, I just paperwork and you got to manage the parents and the teachers, and you got to manage the county that you're in. It's just, that's not where I want to go towards. Um, I looked at guidance counseling, 450 in a week. What? Good gracious, man. Oh, so wait, so your school has pre-K all the way up to eighth grade in one building? That's crazy. 450 once a week. Good gracious, man. That's hats off to you again. Hats off to you, bro. I don't know how you do it, but hats off to you. Like, yeah, I know the struggle. I know the struggle. And yeah, I did it for 11 years, and I was just kind of, like I said, I was kind of over it. I looked at maybe being a guidance counselor, because I like to, really help out kids and stuff like that. But the guidance counselors in my school really never had time to do that. They spent most of their time, they can take it switched. Yeah, I understand. Then they spend, guidance counselors spend most of their time doing scheduling and conducting parent teacher conferences. And none of that is fun to me. Like, not a single one of those things is fun. I don't, making schedules and, trying to tell some parent why his or her kid who won't do any work is failing just is not appealing to me at all. So I was kind of stuck. And at 30, I started this process. Actually, I was 33 when I started the process. I didn't finish it until, like I said, I was 34 once I finished it. But to me, I was just like, if I don't make a move in my life right now, then I'm going to be stuck doing this. Because my daughter, like I said, my daughter's 2 or 3 years old, and I'm really at that point where it's either I make a move now, or this is the course and I'm going to stay on, and I'm just going to have to deal with whatever comes with it. And I just wasn't willing to deal with that. I wasn't willing to stay that course, because that course just seemed like a dead end to me. So joining the Guard was a benefit. It was a great benefit for me. And it transitioned me into a completely new career. That, number one, has just a little bit more financial benefit. And two, it's just something that I really enjoy doing. So, that's why I made that move. So you got to make these kinds of moves, if they benefit you. So one thing I always say in all of my in my videos is, you got to remember that there's not a one size fits all. So what works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for me. So you just kind of have to make the moves that work best for you. I had a lot of people, 98% of the people that I knew, who were telling me, don't do it. Like, don't join. It's not a good decision. It's just, people were telling me not to do it. It's not a good decision. They were telling me I was too old, it was a young man's move and all that kind of good stuff. And they weren't wrong about it being a young man's move. Like, it's definitely, if I could have done it all over again, I would have done it a lot sooner. Because just as an old man, not old man, but as an older guy, you're in your 30s. In the military, you're an old guy in your 30s. It's like being an athlete, being a professional athlete. You're old at like 33. But if I could have done it over again, I probably would have done it a lot earlier. But at the very same time, like I said, those people, they meant well. But I had to do what was best for me and my family, and that's what I did. And I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad I made that decision. There were definitely some challenges. There were some rough challenges. Actually, I started off in one MOS, and I got to the school, the AIT, for that MOS, and it was just the amount of information that I had to learn in a short amount of time. I just wasn't able to do it, right? And I ended up failing. I actually ended up failing out of that my first MOS, AIT. Thankfully, I was able to land in the MOS that I originally actually was going to enlist for. And it's an MOS that benefits, that really matches my natural skills anyway. So I was glad about that. So it worked out for me. But you gotta do what you have to do for yourself, and you gotta make those decisions that work out for you. So, Eric, hopefully everything works out for you and your family. I wish you best of luck, and I look forward to calling you a soldier one day, if that's a decision that you decide to make. Well, we've been 30 minutes, and I was able to answer one question, so that's cool. That's a good start. I appreciate those people who did hop on just to watch. It's great to see you guys. So what I'm going to do again on Sundays, every Sunday, and we're going to shoot for let's do 7:30 because I get up in the morning to work, so I need to get to bed. So let's go 7:30 Sundays. Yeah, man, Eric, I appreciate you. I appreciate your question, man. That was good stuff. It's always good to talk to someone, especially around the same age I was when I joined, who's looking to do the same things. I know that for us, these kinds of decisions, they carry more weight and they're more impactful because by the time you got into your 30s, you've already accumulated some, like I said, you've accumulated family, you've accumulated probably some possessions. You're kind of in that midway point where it's like if I don't do something now, then I got to kind of go all in on whatever I'm doing at this moment, or I can make a move and see how it works out. So because you don't want to wait too you don't want to wait too late. So good for you. And again, thanks for hopping on. Hopefully you'll join me again on Sunday. So I'm gonna do this every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. I just want to do a live where I'm able to talk to people, answer questions, and it can be about anything. It can be about military, it can be about what's going on in the world right now. Like I said earlier, I was talking about the vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine, how I just kind of transitioned from a person who was like, nah, I'm not going to take it, to a person who's like, okay, I'm good with it. I can take it now. I'm good with my family taking it. My wife has actually taken her first shot already. Eric, if you're still on, is your state is your state having you take the shot? So I know here, where we live, they're getting all the teachers vaccinated. So I think they started that process about a month ago, probably about a month ago. So when they started, a month and a half ago, maybe, trying to get the teachers vaccinated so that way they can open up the schools again. Like I said, my wife, she already got her first vaccination shot. I think she's scheduled to get hers pretty soon. Me, I'm far down the important the important totem pole. Just got from Fort Benning. Okay, D. All right, it's good to see you, bro. Good to see you, man. Thanks for hopping on. How was it, man? So because I for what I understand, have they changed anything in basic training? Like I understand that they took out the shark attack and they replaced it with another event. So how was that? It's cold. Was it? So when did you just get back? Like when did you get back from OSINT? But being your video special, yeah. And how old are you? So and thanks. I'm glad that my videos are helpful to you. The first 100. Okay, so in your opinion, was the first 100 yards? Oh, 2 weeks ago. Okay, so in your opinion, was the first 100 yards effective in what they say they're supposed to do? Like I think I read where the first 100 yards is supposed to instill teamwork and trust in your drill sergeants. In your opinion, does the first 100 yards kind of achieve that goal? In 2 weeks ago, so it's cold in Georgia right now. I thought it'd be a little warmer down there. I guess you know what? That's not true because they just had snow down in Texas like 3 weeks ago. Because I was in BLC, and I had BLC was in New Mexico, and they have snow. They had snow and ice down in New Mexico. So I guess it could be pretty cold down there. 6 months? Wait a minute. So how long? So OSINT is. How long is OSINT? I thought it was 14 weeks. I thought it was like the 10 weeks for basic training, and then an additional 3 or 4 weeks for an infantry school. Did they make it longer? Oh, 22 weeks. Okay, dang. Oh, well, thank you for your service. Good gracious. Okay, got you. 22 weeks. Okay. I see. Well, now I know they've made some changes I know they made some changes to basic training within the last year. So 22 weeks is a long time. That's a long time to be in that environment. But I guess, you know what, though? And here's what I guess my experience was that, when I was in basic training, now I wasn't OSINT. Hey, thanks a lot, D. Appreciate you checking in here. Here's what I found for me. Like I said, I had the regular basic training, and it probably took me like 2 or 3 weeks, probably 2 or 3 weeks to adjust. And then once I adjusted to everything that was going on around me at basic training, it became like normal to us. So essentially, even though our drill sergeants were tough, like we kind of changed the way we looked at them. Um, no, there wasn't the intimidation factor much. It was more like, we kind of took those things like a challenge. And you just kind of get adapted to the way it's the way things are run. So you learn how to eat quick. You learn you learn the language. You learn the tempo, all that stuff. You just kind of it's interesting how we as people can adjust to really any type of environment. So it took about 3 weeks for us to do it. I know, at least for me, 3 weeks, and then I was good. And then once I was good, that really became my normal all the way through AIT. And then once I got back home from AIT, it took me a while. It probably took me almost a year for me to kind of mellow out a little bit and kind of mellow out and kind of start kind of picking up a little bit more civilian habits. But just like that, I can snap right back into it. Once I put on the uniform, once I get back into an environment where it's just Army, it's just like it's become a permanent part of my psyche, I guess. So they did their job. But yeah, so that's cool though. It's interesting. Like I say, you did your you did the first 100 yards. And I've heard some. I haven't heard anybody actually speak on it. So I appreciate you dropping that into the chat there. I've heard people give their opinions on it. People who like myself who don't have to go through it, and obviously those of us who went through the shark attack. Now that we look back on it, it's kind of a nostalgic event that you go through, and it's in the Army, at least, is one of the few linking events that you can say, hey, the person who joined the Army 20 years ago, had the same experience. When it comes to shark attacks, a lot has changed. But as long as if the goal is to change civilians into soldiers, and as long as basic training is still doing that, then that's the main goal. Changing civilians into soldiers, that's the main goal. And if that's what it's doing, then it's achieving its purpose. So D, thanks a lot, man. Congrats on graduating infantry OSINT. You guys are our heroes. You guys are really what makes the Army the Army. I'll say that. I don't have a problem saying that at all. So kudos to you, and good luck in whatever else you're doing. So when it comes to MOSs, that's something that again, you need to make sure you are getting the MOS that you want. You got to make sure that you're that before you meet with a recruiter. And I say this, I don't care if it's active Army, National Guard, or the Army Reserves. Before you meet with a recruiter, make sure that you are doing the research to find out what MOSs are available, or at least are out there, what MOSs you are interested in doing, and then what are the requirements in order to qualify for those MOSs. Because a recruiter's job is just to get you in the Army. And there may be some MOSs that a recruiter is encouraged to funnel you towards. But ultimately, a recruiter just wants to get you in the Army. So you got to make sure that at that point, you're still in control of the situation. So when you're coming to a recruiter and you're talking about joining, maintain control of the conversation. Make sure that conversation is going in the direction that you want it to go. Make sure that whatever they say you're going to get gets put in the contract. Because if it's not put in the contract, I don't care what they said, what kind of promises they make you. If it's not in the contract, then that conversation never happened. I wanted to do a direct commission when I joined the Guard. I had a conversation, and so I had a conversation with some commander somewhere. My recruiter called up a commander, was like, "Hey, I got a recruit here who wants to, he wants to commission as an officer when he gets in. He's going to enlist first, but he needs a recommendation from you. Can you talk to him? Literally, the phone call literally lasted for all of like 30 seconds. All of 30 seconds, some real basic, some real like real quick questions. Like, why do you want to be an officer? What do you bring to the Army? And then that was it, right? That was it. And then he was like, yeah, go ahead and put my name, go ahead and put my name down as a recommendation. The recommendation was put in my paperwork as far as like, such and such not approved, but has recommended Specialist Pierce. But that meant absolutely nothing because number one, I didn't know who that commander was. I don't know what unit he was from. He didn't know me from Adam. So it was pretty much worthless, essentially. It got me in the Army. Like I said, I was able to go in and say, hey, let me go ahead and put on my right hand and take my oath. But once I got in the Army, I realized that it was kind of worthless. And there were some other soldiers who had the same experience with it. So again, make sure you go in knowing what you want, knowing what it takes to get what you want. So that way you can maintain control of the conversation and get, like in negotiation, they say, the point of negotiation is to come out with as much of your shirt on as possible. So when you leave out of that recruiter's office, you want to leave with most of your shirt on. You may not get everything you want, but go ahead and get what you do want though. So that's good stuff. Good stuff. So I had a good question earlier, and then like I said, D came through and gave us some knowledge on the first 100 yards, which is a new event at basic training, and the fact that infantry OSINT now is 22 weeks long. It's a long time, but gotta do what you gotta do. So we appreciate the service as always. So for those who just came on, again, I'm going to be doing this every Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Originally, I stated every Thursday at 7:30 p.m., but I just recently had some changes to my work schedule, which won't make that. I won't be able to be consistent with that because of those changes. But I don't work on weekends, so that's the one consistent there. So we're going to keep going with that. So every Sunday, 7:30 p.m. I want to do a live, answer some questions, have some conversations. Like I said, there's some of you who may have gone through the process, or who may be in the Army longer than I have, and you have some information that you want to drop, some knowledge that you want to drop on the viewers and on myself. I'm open to all of that. You may have some questions for me that I can try to answer. I'm open to that as well. Or you just may have some topics that you just want to discuss. And I'm down for that as well. So I think I'll end it with this. Just to tie things in, because I started off talking about the coronavirus vaccination. Wherever you fall on the political spectrum, and I know it's hard to do nowadays because everything has just been so political. Everything has become so political. But turn off some of that stuff and just take an honest, just kind of get an honest opinion from yourself. Like, what am I doing to keep my family, my loved ones safe? Am I doing what I can do, or am I doing what someone else is telling me I should do? Right? Like I said, I started off not being a person who wanted to take the vaccine because I thought that the process was rushed. It's not because I didn't believe in COVID-19. I do. Unfortunately, we had an aunt. My wife had an aunt who passed away from COVID-19 back in March of 2020. We've known people who've contracted it. Thankfully, everyone is okay, to my knowledge. From the other people who've caught it, I think we had one family member another family member who had a really bad bout with it, but thankfully she's fine now. I have a coworker who's dealt with it, and he said it wasn't anything to play with. So I have been very cautious. Me and my family, we've been very cautious since March, really. And now at this point where the vaccination is available and some people have taken it, and so far so good. There have been a couple of cases where people have had some allergic reactions to it. There have been some cases. I think the AstraZeneca vaccination, was it last week or 2 weeks ago in the UK, where they're studying to see if it was there was a link between the vaccination and blood clots. So understanding it's not perfect. Nothing ever is. But I think um, this year, having more information, seeing the data, being able to watch the interviews where people are able to ask genuine questions, and get consistent answers, right? Because that's what I kind of look for. I look for consistency in the answers. It's made me feel more comfortable taking the vaccination. The fact that, again, my daughter has upper respiratory issues, and the fact that the coronavirus is not just going to disappear, it's not going to evaporate, it's going to be with us for the long term, really, has kind of pushed me towards saying, you know what, I think I will do the vaccination once it becomes available. I know they're starting to do the trials on for children, so we'll have to wait to see what that research entails. We know that the vaccine works, but I guess they're going to look to see what kind of doses are going to be appropriate for children. And so when that becomes available, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have my daughter get vaccinated because of her own physical issues, and the way that the coronavirus can interact with those physical issues. So whatever you're doing, I just hope that everyone's kind of doing it with good information, not on a political stance, but again, with information, with research. I do understand that depending on where you live, again, the I won't say the need for the vaccination may change, but maybe the urgency to get the vaccination may be different depending on where you live. We live in an area where there's no in our metro area. I think there's like 8 million people in our metro area. So we just interact with a lot of you're just constantly interacting with people because there's just so many people around. And we live in an area where people are coming in all the time. So like I said, we're going to take the vaccination once it becomes available. But with that being said, I want to thank everybody for jumping on. This is probably the first stream that I've done where I actually had some participation, so I greatly appreciate it, and where I've seen a consistent number of folks hop on. So again, I'll see you guys on Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Stay safe again. Keep going after your dreams. Keep going after your goals. Don't let anybody deter you. You know what you want to do. You know what's good for you and your family. Go ahead and do it. All right. God bless everyone. Take care of yourself.